Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast with Ron and Kristin, where leadership meets entertainment. This podcast features stories with names and certain aspects that have been changed to keep submissions private. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast, where leadership meets entertainment. I'm Kristin, and I'm joined by my co-host, Ron Ward. As you guys probably know, Ron likes to sneak in his own introductions. And today, I'm putting my foot down. I am not reading that, you cheeseball.
Wow. Like, I used a thesaurus.
Nice try.
I used a thesaurus on that.
That's a true story. He did bust out a thesaurus, and I still not going there. All right. So on this episode, we are discussing 10 reasons why businesses fail. First, Ron, how are you doing? I'm going to be there in 2 days. You ready for this?
Yeah, by the time this airs, you will be here.
That's true. That's true.
So, yeah, we're recording a couple days before the conference. So we'll give,
exciting.
At some point, we'll give an update. No, it's really
Yes.
exciting, Kristin. And I will have your name on a little index card when you step out of the airport. So
That is so, it won't be on like a
Just look for
cardboard, a hunk of cardboard.
I'm going to have welcome home from prison, Kristin.
Oh, do it, please. I would. That makes for great social
That's
media.
the problem is what can you do that's going to bother you? You're just
I
gonna
know,
embrace
not much. Oh, okay. So Ron, you went from a career in the government, a long career in the government. How many years were you there?
26 and a half. Total.
Yeah. Hey, you know the days, I'm sure. So you went from working for the government and you form your own business. You've been successful, as we've mentioned in other episodes. That did not come without struggles. But before we get into today's topic, what are a few lessons that you wish you had known earlier?
Well, as you know, Kristin, we shared a couple of episodes back about hiring the wrong person. That was one of the biggest. And the other thing, some of it I did well, some I did not. But you have to pace yourself. And if you're an idea person, I talk to these types of people all the time. They're big dreamers and they have great ideas.
Yeah.
But what you have to realize is you can have the best product. If no one comes through the door, it doesn't matter. So you have to have your marketing, your team, people who will support you initially, and have your marketing in place. And you may have to wear a lot of hats in the beginning. I came from having a full staff with the government to just me.
Yeah.
And
what a change.
Yeah. I had to start doing things that I wasn't accustomed to. So there's some things I paced myself well and other things I jumped too soon.
Right.
So I hope people take that to heart.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've talked about this too. And we've talked about both of us and organization and how that's not our strong suit. And I struggled with the same thing. I was used to being able to delegate things too. And when I'm doing everything on my own, it's quite the adjustment. But let's start up with this week's topics. So we're talking about reasons, the 10 reasons businesses generally fail. And, you know, what was it? 2 episodes ago, we talked about DEI and how it's rolling back, right? In many corporations across the United States. But come to find out, that was one of the top reasons that businesses have failed. And that was DEI programs in the workplace. And we'll put our source in the show notes here so you guys can see that. But, it has damaged businesses and morale. And I'll read a little bit of detail here on it. It's hard to disagree that firing or not hiring because of someone's race, religion, gender, orientation is discrimination, and it is illegal. Yet when someone is treated with a preference over the others in the workplace based on those same characteristics, it's labeled as diversity and inclusion, and not only acceptable, it's actually something that is expected, right? So I can absolutely see how that's been harmful.
And Kristin, when you said source, and you're correct, you read from a source, but there's multiple sources. But I want to note this for our listeners. Once again, I had to dig deep. The first headlines did not want to go into some of the
Of course
negative
not.
impact on morale. So I had to do some digging on this, but then it turns out the legitimate stats show that it's divisive. And we've said that many
Right.
times. Number two, by the way, we're only sharing 2 of the 7. This particular article will be in the show notes along with other articles. But I want you to think about this. Let's do a Huey level with this and clear your mind of everything you've been told. DEI looks at physical attributes instead of intellectual talents. Basically, companies wanted to look more diverse on commercials and posters instead of seeking the most talented people. And by the way, that works for a while until there's a major problem that needs to be solved and you don't have talented people in the room to do it. That's why we're starting to see it took a long time for businesses to start admitting this isn't working. And then they started getting complaints. They started getting divisions among employees at work.
Right.
And it all pointed to one sign, and that sign said DEI. So thank goodness, the pendulum swung too far. Chris and I have said over and over, we're not against anyone. We're very inclusive, but you have to look at talent. And exactly what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, look at the content of someone's character instead of the color of their skin.
Yeah. It's funny. There was the movie that just came out, and it's Am I Racist? And it's funny because this white guy who's pretending to be, I guess, what is he, a diversity officer? I don't know. But he's undercover. And he says to a Black woman who's teaching an anti-racism class, and he quotes Martin Luther King Jr. And then she goes, he said a lot of things, and kind of just brushed it off. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like his words aren't even valued in today's world with this far. Yeah, it's wild to me. So let's get on to some other problems. So if 2025 is the year that you are planning to start a business, you're going to want to listen carefully. The number one thing, and I saw this a lot in banking, is cash flow. That is hands down the number one reason why small businesses fail. You need to know how to track the money coming in and out of your business, the debits and credits. Even a profitable venture will flounder if it runs short of cash.
Kristin, I have a friend who we talked about the pros and cons of this. When this person got low in cash flow, they worked harder. Like they started, because you got to eat, right? You start making the phone calls.
Yeah.
But they realized it stifled creativity. You're working under such pressure just to survive that ultimately it doesn't make your business stronger in most cases. So please listen to us. We're all about entrepreneurship. We really are.
Yeah.
But I've said this many times, Kristin, I draw retirement. And if I did not, I've really asked myself, like, it took 4 months for one government agency to pay me. Imagine if I was broke. I wonder how entrepreneurs do it. So get you some cash flow before you take that big step.
Yeah. And I definitely think that is key. And then also to look at the big picture. Look, with me personally, as an entrepreneur, I have a husband who has a pension that he can draw on, right, when he retires. So it is important, I feel like, for couples and even for people to really take a look and see. You have to understand that there are risks, and the reward can absolutely outweigh the risks, but you just need to be aware of them. So there is just a little more on that. You have to learn how to make cash flow projections, and that's going to help you decide how much money you can afford to spend. And then it'll warn you of impeding trouble. Okay. And there's so many times where people came to the bank and they wanted to take out a loan, but they were upside down and they just didn't understand the ins and outs. And I think that's something that should happen. You should really do a full study into it before you start your business.
Yeah. Number 2 is a lack of clarity. And it's hard to put these one over the other, but God, this is so important. In my executive coaching, I've coached someone who's all over the place. And I'm like, hold on, we got to get a clear vision to do the business. So, and you have to and I think we forget to do this, but you have to have an avatar. You got to build, and it can't be you. That's the problem. We think clarity is what we want to buy. But Kristin, you and I may not be the prototype of what we're seeking.
Right.
So you have to have an idea. Am I looking for a certain demographic? Am I looking for male, female? You have to understand those things.
Right.
When people are writing a book, they say this to me, Kristin, and I had some of this in me also. I go, who's your target audience? Everybody. And I said, I wish that were true, but your family, your Aunt Susie's going to buy your book. Yes. But generally speaking, you better have a demographic in mind because that's who you're writing to. And it's so hard for visionaries to do this.
Right.
And I've been guilty of it. Like right now, Kristin, you know some future plans that I have. Like I really want a publishing company. And I've got specific reasons. I'll talk about it later of what I think's lacking, but it's not the right time.
Right.
And it's so hard for me not to just dive in because I've got people contacting me wanting to write a book, and I've got these ideas that I think would really help people, but it's just not the right time. Yeah. And you've got to have clarity when you are starting a business.
Oh my gosh. I know people that have told me like everything that's going on in life, friends of mine, I'm doing this and I'm doing this. And I'm like, I just want to say, shut the F up for a second. Get one thing off the ground. I don't want to hear about your 20 ideas. I want to hear about your one idea and the steps you've taken to do something with it. You will lose credibility so quickly if you can't get an idea off the ground, yet you tell everybody about it. Keep your idea to yourself if you don't plan on doing anything with it, right? Like that's something that I see a lot. I know you, Ron. I know you're going to do something with it, but there are so many people, you and I both know, that they'll tell you every day you see them about what they're wanting to do, and it becomes quite obnoxious.
Kristin, I don't want to belabor this, but there's a story in my book, and this hit me so hard, and it's what got me. I'm going to be honest with you. All my years in government, we would mention a vision statement, but I didn't understand really vision, mission, values, marketing.
Right.
So I had this guy that was insecure, and he was a troublemaker, and I knew that. So he was disappointed with the decision that I made. So we set a meeting. He came in to talk to me, and he goes, I don't understand where the academy's heading. And of course, I knew he was, that was a jab to me.
Yeah.
And so I quoted the vision statement, and he goes, what's that mean? And honestly, I misspoke in the beginning. I called him in because he had been gossiping and it got back to me. So I'm going to provide this guy some corrective feedback. Next thing you know, I'm on the defensive because when he said, what's that mean? I'm kind of stuttering.
You're like,
I
don't know.
Rambled
what
a
do you think
bit.
It means?
That's what I should have done. What's it mean to you,
what
bud?
Do you think? Yeah.
But that caused me to take a deep dive into vision, mission. Now, I was able to get around that. I don't want to make myself look too ignorant here, but I did realize that number one is I needed to take back control of this meeting. Yeah. This wasn't about me and the vision. But so I did backpedal a little bit, and then I got control. I ended up telling this guy that, you better shape up. And if any other gossip gets back to me, there'll be repercussions. So I did regain my...
you have to.
The position of advantage. But anyway.
Right. Yeah. No, I love those stories, Ron. I'm actually curious how that sounded exactly, but that's another episode. All right. Another thing, sloppy or ineffective marketing. We were talking about marketing a little bit earlier, Ron. And, there's a cliche, few products or services sell themselves. That's BS. I think we all know that, right? So, there's some dumb luck out there. Sure. A few people are going to stumble upon dumb luck, but for the vast majority, you have to take the time to market your product effectively and hire an experienced person to do it for you. Now, Ron did that, but they turned out to be a bit of a nightmare, right? That was 4 episodes ago. Call those references, right, Ron? That's that. That's that main takeaway.
If you're listening now and you haven't listened to that episode, if you've hired the wrong person, you need to go back and listen to that.
Right. Because that was a tricky one. I don't fault you for that hire. So she bamboozled you. But it's important that we all understand that that can happen to all of us, to any of us. So back to marketing, it keeps your products selling and money flowing into your business. And it's crucial that you do it well. You were talking about basically knowing your customer, Ron. And I know some people are like, yeah, I want everyone to be my customer. Well, that's just not reality. My mom was a high-end fashion buyer, and she would talk about her customer a lot. I went on buy trips with her in New York City. My customer likes this. My customer is this size, right? Like they generally, depending on the department and the area of the country in which they lived, you have to always have your customer in mind. And the same goes for non-fashion industries as well. You have to know who you're selling to, and then you market it as such. So that is absolutely critical. Don't be a sloppy Joe when it comes to your marketing.
Yeah, and the next one is inadequate planning, and there should be a business plan. There's some of these things that you always feel like, I don't need that, but there needs to be a business plan. And not only that, you got to ask the why and the how. Like anyone can write, sales are going to be 100,000 by next year. How's that going to happen? Why is that going to happen?
Man,
what
they
are you going to do to
annihilate
get there?
on Shark Tank when they're like putting those crazy bloated numbers out there, and they're like, wait, yeah, break this down. And very few can actually break it down because they knew the number was fabricated.
I love when they asked, the valuation, and
oh my gosh,
and
yes,
people say these things and then they question. I've learned a lot about business watching that show.
Yes, I agree.
For sure. But anyway, get a plan in effect and challenge your plan, challenge the process. What if? Remember one time we said create faux crisis. Ask yourself a question. What if sales go down? Or how are we going to reinvent ourselves? How are we going to pivot? These kind of things. Who can I trust? Who's going to help me? All these things have to be put in place to be successful.
Yeah, they sure do. And another thing is procrastination. I actually struggle with this a little bit myself. I like to say that I work really well under pressure, and that's my excuse. I do work really well under pressure, but there is a stress, an underlying stress that comes with someone who procrastinates, right? And so, like for instance, I just spent 5 hours today putting a presentation together for when I'm in Charleston speaking at your conference, Ron. And yeah, I felt under pressure today. I got it done and I did it well. But there was an underlying stress because I waited until 48 hours before I was going to be there, right? And it's not something you do on the airplane, folks. Just my mom was like, just do it on the airplane. I'm like, oh, you think I'm actually, no, that would create chaos. Anyhow, you have to make sure that you're on top of things, especially when you own a small business. Tasks and paperwork are gonna pile up. And think of it as piling debt. It can overwhelm you very easily. And small business owners like distractions that keep them from the money-making activities. Usually they're a creative, right? The small business owner, they're creative, they're visionary, but the paperwork can weigh you down and it's not the most sexy thing. So you do have to stay focused, have goals, and then keep moving forward.
So Kristin is going to see my studio in a couple of days, and I was just telling her, don't judge me. I keep saying I'm going to clean it up, make it neat, but I doubt that's going to happen. Kristin, I'm just warning you.
It's okay. I am not a clean freak, believe it or not.
Okay, good.
So you're okay.
The next is incompetent employees. And we need to hire people who are essential to the operation. And I'm doing a lot of plugs for my book, but there is a cool story about this guy who hired his best friend's son who was not qualified. And it was a disaster. And ultimately, he had to terminate him. So guess who lost a friendship? It all went south. So unless you are a very small business owner and you're hiring a family member out of trust, like I knew a woman who hired her daughter, and I understand that. My daughter does my books, Kristin. But if you are trying to run a reputable business, you need to hire talented people and probably avoid most family members, frankly, or best friends.
Right.
That story had devastating consequences on
Yeah.
they lost tons of money, morale, friendships destroyed. It all
that was a big
happened.
one.
And they think they're doing something great by hiring their best friend's son fresh out of college.
Oh no. Yeah, that's bad. Haven't done that. I've hired a friend, I guess you could say. Well, it was someone that worked for me in the past and we got along really well. They eventually became my friend. But yeah, that can be problematic also. But I made sure to just really ensure that this is a work relationship and this is personal, but it's very difficult to do for most people. Something else, ignoring customers' needs. At the end of my banking career, I was in charge of the customer experience program for the bank. And let me tell you, I've seen everything. I've seen complaints of hold music, up to like just wild things that you don't even think could happen, right? So, but when you ignore customers' needs, when you attract customers in the first place, you have to work hard to keep them. And customer service should be a key aspect of any business. And if you don't follow through with your customers, they're going to find someone who will. And with everything is moving so fast, right? This is kind of wild, Ron. If someone submits, say you have a small business and your business has a social media page, which most should. I'm a big advocate of having a social media page. If someone messages regarding your business, they expect a response via the social media page within 24 hours. And that's pushing it. They expect a very quick response. So if you do that and you can follow through quickly, that will set you apart from your competition. Just remember, no customers, no revenue. And that leads to no business.
That's exactly right. When I started my business, one of the values is that we're going to make sure that customers are satisfied. And I don't know how many times, this is just one small example, but I mailed books that got destroyed and I would promptly get them a new book, sign it again. Yeah. And I told you before, Kristin, I'm grateful for everyone that's bought my book through the website, but it's very difficult for me to go to the post office, especially when I'm mailing 1 to 2 books. I've stood in line an hour to mail 1 book.
Oh, wow.
And I remember getting a little bit of an attitude in my mind. I'm frustrated. And I thought, you know what? I wrote a book and somebody wanted it and they wanted me to sign it. And it totally changed my attitude. So it was my outlook. But I made sure that people are made whole. And Kristin, if you go on, anyone listening, go on Amazon and read the reviews of my book. There's a guy from Germany. I had to laugh, honestly, but my book was translated into 8 languages. So this guy from Germany bought my book. Apparently the pagination or the margins were off.
Oh, okay.
So he said, seems to be a good book, having trouble reading it. And he put, be a leader and fix it. He gave me a 2.
Wow.
As frustrated as I was, I did have to laugh. I was like, touche.
Be a leader and fix your margins.
Yeah, but I had nothing to do with that. And guess what? With Amazon, I've appealed it. I can't get rid of that. Even though it was not about the content of the book. It's about margins.
I'm curious, when it translated, did it because maybe the words were longer and that's what skewed the pages? Did you ever get an answer on that?
Okay, so I initially went with Ingram Sparks. This is another reason I want to start a publishing company. I'm not going to go into it, but I went from Ingram Spark. Now I just went exclusively with Amazon, moved the book from Ingram Spark because it's the largest publisher in the world. And that's the reason they do it is they're going to put your book in 8 languages. It is extremely rare.
So that's their edge.
Yeah, that you sell international books. It's just rare. So here I sell, a book or 2 internationally, and the one from Germany came back to haunt me. So that's kind of what happened. But I can tell you right now, folks, you write a book, anyone. I've got a friend wrote a book. Her cousin didn't like her. Her own family member wrote a negative review of her book, gave it a 0, and Amazon will not touch it. And she explained to them,
so
this is
bad.
a family member. This is a cousin that, doesn't like me and all that. It's stuck on there. So,
oh my goodness,
you got to know that going into it.
Ron, what's the number 2 country that listens to us?
I don't know the answer to that, Kristin.
Germany. Maybe it's your boy.
Maybe it's my guy.
Germany.
If you're listening.
Not even Canada. I'm Germany. It goes US, Germany, then UK, and then Canada's down there. But wild, right?
When I finally got someone in Amazon, I literally said, if there's any way to get his address, I will make this right. I will send a book. I'll do whatever. Of course,
Nice.
you can't do that.
Yeah.
So in the 1 in 1,000 million trillion number that you're listening,
Yeah. Hey, it
take
might
that
be.
down.
I know, right? Like Ron wants to make it right. All these years later, he wants to make it right. Oh, goodness. All right. Well, something you were talking about the publisher and how really their edge is that they can print in multiple languages. So another fault or a reason businesses fail is ignoring the competition. Ron, what are we doing with our studios for the new year?
Yeah. I will tell you that I saw this even in, oh, I didn't turn my phone off.
How tacky are you?
Mr. President, hold on.
Yeah, right. So what we're doing is we have, and this was Ron's suggestion, so I think this is good. So I'm going to give you credit here, Ron. So you're talking about how our competition, how other podcasters are changing around their studio, so it's not just a talking head, right? So you get a little more of an environment feel. And so we're going to be rearranging. I'm in a tiny little space here, but I'm going to do my best. But we're going to be rearranging for a new look for the new year. So there's a little more visibility, and you can see our workstations and
yeah, we're
within
also
reason.
looking at changing format because, as we said, you got to be sustainable. So if you've been listening to us a long time, you might get a little bored with us. We're wise enough to know that. So we want to possibly change the format a little bit.
Bring some guests on.
And bring some guests.
I mean, between you and I, we could fill a couple years worth of guests. It's just with our contacts, but
we could. And we
don't want to quite go that crazy.
There's a very specific reason that I didn't want guests, and it's because of the formatting of saying, Kristin, tell us about yourself. Why'd you write your book in your 15, 20 minutes? And I just don't ever want to do that. I know. So you wouldn't be able to persuade me to do that. But
no, I'm not into it either.
If we could, if we can hit it hard and get some points out of it, I would love to do that.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that'd be great. And so that's the whole thing is paying attention to your competition, what's trending, just the two of us for, in the same setting. We're trying to revamp every year. And that's what businesses need to do as well. And, customer loyalty has declined sharply in recent years. So you always have to be, rethinking what you're doing and constantly reviewing numbers to make sure that you're going in the right direction. For us, it would be getting more listeners, getting more downloads, right? Getting those ratings. And without that, then you really have to take a hard look and say, okay, what aren't we doing? What is our competition doing? Same thing goes for businesses.
And Kristin, Michael Jordan said that he had to have an enemy or he had to have a competitor, Larry Bird, all of these great athletes. And I'm going to be honest with you. It's not that I root against anyone, but I do build people. I look at what they're doing and I build some competition with myself.
Yeah.
And as long as I don't wish them ill will, I'm just saying I compete with them so that it keeps me on the edge and I can keep progressing. I have to have that.
Yeah.
And lastly, Kristin, is a lack of versatility. We talked about part of that comes into this DEI phase, but we have used the funny term aces in spaces and jacks in cracks. And I'm telling you, the subject matter experts are the key. When you get in a crisis or you need something important, you want to go to that person that has that expertise. And that starts with hiring the right people. And then when you need them, you can certainly utilize their skills and utilize their talents.
Right.
I've told this story before, but I had some bookkeeping issues and I needed an assistant. As we've said, Kristin, I'm not overly organized.
Yeah.
So I needed especially bookkeeping. And I'm sitting at my daughter's house. Now, this is part-time, so I'm not contradicting what I said earlier about hiring family members, but I'm sitting there. My daughter has a master's degree in finance and she's just blasting through reconciling and all this stuff.
That's amazing.
And I'm sitting there going, oh my God, it hit me. It's like that one of those movies, the answer was there all the time. I just
Yeah.
need to click my red ruby slippers.
Yeah.
And so I said, Haley, you want to make some extra money? And
Perfect.
and it has been wonderful
There's
because
nothing wrong with that.
well, yeah, and this is not, the CEO of my company. This is a
Right.
side hustle for her. But I told someone it's really funny that I can argue with her, and then we're about to hang up. I go, love you. She says, love you.
Yeah, no, you knew her personality and she knows yours, right? And you
Oh,
can
yeah.
have that mutual respect, but not everyone can do that.
She can
I'm
also
the
keep
same
me
way
in
though.
line. She can go,
Good.
Dad, are you sure you need to do this? And
Nice.
that's what I need to hear sometimes.
Yes. Yes. Sounds
Because,
like a great pairing.
being a dreamer, that happens
Mm-hmm.
sometimes.
Yeah, you need that realist to come in there and
Why don't you give us a bonus, Kristin?
Okay, let's see here. A closed mind. Everyone goes into a business with some preconceptions, right? And don't be surprised if you find that many of yours are wrong. I'm doing a presentation. I'm talking about social media preconceptions, right? Like there's a lot of them out there. So when it comes to business, look for mentors who can give you advice and run your ideas past them before you make important financial commitments. You have to be open to their feedback as well. You can't let it offend you. You need to ask them and truly be looking for that feedback. You want to read books and magazines about small businesses. If this is your first time starting a small business, it is vastly different from working for somebody. And it's really important you also visit business related websites and network with your peers who are already in the business community. Ron, I know our county, our town here, they have, gosh, I'm trying to think what it's basically like it's at the city hall every month and they have a meeting where all the small businesses can attend. Of course, I can't think of what it's
Probably
called.
BMI or something like that
What
out
does that
there.
stand for?
Business Management Institute or something like that.
Okay.
Or
Yeah, ours is
business
put on
meeting.
by the county, but yeah, it's just a great way for small business owners locally to get together. I know the city of Portland does them. Here in Clackamas County, they do them. So they're out there. So that's a great place to start, and even before you start your business.
Kristin, I think one time I was on a Q&A about my book, and they asked me to give leadership advice, and I said, be a lifelong learner. And it's amazing
Yeah.
what resources are out there. I'm in a CIA,
Yeah.
it's a long story, but I'm in hostage negotiation training. Now, I'm doing it from a business standpoint, from a former FBI hostage negotiator, but you would be surprised what's available to you, is what I'm saying. Even this
Right.
podcast or other podcasts, TED Talks, all that stuff. You just got to stay curious. You got to keep an open mind, but also
Right.
get a mentor or mentors, plural,
Yeah.
because there's different people who can show you different things at different times. And
Right. Right.
I am always learning. And
Yeah.
Kristin, I will say this about you and what you do on social media. You found your niche, and it's a passion. It's obvious, but there's so many people, I see them, and I'm sure you do too. They come on strong. They're on there every day.
Yeah.
They're the new leader in town. They're giving you advice when,
Yeah.
frankly, they haven't really led before. And
Right.
then they
Right.
just fizzle out. They disappear for a year, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden they're back. And
Right. Right.
you are a force. I mean, man, you don't go away. And I mean that in a positive sense. And
Yeah.
we've tried, folks. I'm kidding.
Oh, social media, they've tried.
Yeah, I've heard. So anyway,
Yeah.
my point is you got to be ready for the long haul. Leadership
Yeah.
is a lifelong venture, or at least especially a career-long venture. And I've
Right.
seen these dynamic, charismatic leaders step on the scene, and man, it's cool for a little while, and then they realize they have no character, they have no values, they have no plan, and it
Yeah.
just fizzles away. And
Right.
I think the thing that I'm most proud of is if I get someone who actually worked for me and they still think I'm a good leader, all these years
Yeah. It's
later. That's more
huge.
important, to have long-term
Yes.
associates and followers and those kind of things. So get those mentors and be a lifelong
Yes.
learner.
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad you said that. Something that's always resonated with me is I came back to visit one of my teams that I led. And I remember one of the gals who worked for me, and she's about, I would say, a little close to my mom's age, but she had this respect for me. Sometimes it can be hard leading someone who's 20 years, 25 years older than you.
Yeah.
You don't know if they're going to respect you because you're so much younger, but she was like, we had it so good under you. And it really, I appreciate it, especially coming from her. But that's really important. It's important to treat people right. And to your point, be seen as a strong leader, even after, you're not in their leadership position anymore.
Yeah.
So pretty cool.
Hey, Kristin, before we close, I want to give a little shout out to Jeff Flug. He listened to the very first episode. He's bought my book for I don't know how many people, had it shipped. Yeah, and Jeff had some surgery. He's recovering. So, Jeff, shout out to you. You're in our prayers. I've sent him text messages. We've texted back and forth.
Get well soon. That's
nice. But we're grateful for Jeff.
Yes, very.
All right, everybody. Be the leader you're meant to be.
We'll see you next week.
The Dirty Side of Leadership podcast is brought to you by Forward Operations. If you'd like to book Ron or Kristin for speaking events, training, or executive coaching, visit forwardoperations.com. Be the leader you're meant to be.